All right, thank you, Amy. And thank you for those kind of detailed definitions and the explanation. I'll definitely be drawing on that as we talk through this, and we'll point to some specific examples where the work we're doing in Iowa really connects strongly with the model you discussed. So first, though, a little context. So this NIC is a partnership with the Central Rivers Area Education Agency in north central Iowa and districts within that agency. And so Central Rivers is located in north central Iowa, as I mentioned. If you could see me point to the screen, I would draw it there on the map for you. And they support the folks in that AEA, which an AEA is similar to like a regional agency or a county agency or any of those other intermediate agencies that exist in states. And they serve 66,000 students in over 70 schools, 18 counties, and over 9,000 square miles. I've been there many times. It's a large area. Folks in some districts are, will travel up to 2 hours to get to the AEA office to attend some of our coaching sessions or more. And so the whole idea behind this improvement community being networked, of working together across contexts, that really plays out in this situation based on kind of where everyone's located, the rural nature of many of the districts we're working with. And so as you can see here, the focus of our NIC is on educational technology, instructional technology, and explicitly we look at how we work with the NIC to look at how technology is integrated into classroom instruction. The districts involved have teams from the high schools in the district that come together as part of this NIC. And one of the key terms that you're going to hear me mention that I want to define for everybody really quick up front is SAMR. So we talk a lot about, we use the SAMR framework, SAMR, as a guidepost for how we're thinking about how technology integrates with instruction. And that stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. So thinking about how technology changes the way you teach. Is it substituting, say, a word processing for using a pencil paper, or is it really redefining? Is it allowing teachers and students to engage in instructional activities that couldn't be imagined or done without that technology piece? And so when you hear me reference that model, that's what we're talking about. A couple of other contextual things. When Amy mentioned the hub here really is a partnership between REL Midwest and the AEA. So REL Midwest facilitators come in and we provide coaching and capacity building related to improvement science and related to educational technology. The AEA already has a role with these districts providing capacity building and coaching opportunities related to instructional technology, but they also play an essential function in really coordinating and making connections across the districts that they serve. I mean, they're an invaluable part of the hub as we operationalize the ideas of the NIC. And the districts, the teams from each school, are the learners and the improvers and the folks who are actually going through the process of defining problems, building plans for interventions, and engaging in plan, do, study, act cycles. To date, we have hit, we worked with 3 high schools, 3 districts in Iowa in the 2017-2018 school year, and we're continuing that work with some of them now. In the past school year, we worked with Northwood Kensett School District, Dyke New Hartford, who our guest Joanna serves, and then BGM School District. And so we first started by defining a problem with the AEA related to instructional technology, as I mentioned before, and then we engaged everyone in the root cause analysis. And I won't read every little entry on this fishbone diagram to you, but this is a great example of how that played out. We got the group together. they brainstormed. We identified 6 different categories of root causes and several root causes within those categories, all related to that problem. From there, we continued to really unpack and define the problem by engaging in an exercise to build a theory of action, which is our logic model. Don't worry if you can't read all the words on these slides as I'm going through them, because I'm going through them pretty quickly so we can get to our panel, but note that as was shared in the chat, the recording will be available later. So we looked at program inputs, we looked at activities that were related to those inputs, all with this idea of SAMR and what instructional activities that are aligned along the SAMR spectrum should look like. We defined outputs for those activities and then expected outcomes from those activities and based on those outputs. We talked about our target as well. So our NIC members are the target. We want to have a common SAMR framework, common expectations for how teachers are to use instructional technology to, as some of our colleagues in the AEA say, swim in all lanes of the SAMR pool. So matching up appropriate instructional practices using technology with lesson and unit objectives and plans. And our overall goal, based as captured in our theory of action, is to have all teachers demonstrate understanding of SAMR framework and appropriate integration of technology by planning and developing instructional activities that reflect that understanding. So in the first year and cycles of this network improvement community, we're really focused on that planning piece and what it means to be intentional about using technology in instruction and planning appropriately for it. We engaged in our first PDSA cycle in winter and spring of 2018, and you can see here that we've captured some of the interventions and outcome measures that were used by our districts in the NIC. BGM, one of our districts, built a self-reflection activity and then used a Google form to collect data on kind of mapping how folks planned and identified SAMR levels in their plans and then how accurate they were in identifying those levels. Dyke New Hartford did something similar, and Joanna's going to talk about what they did, but they really adapted a coaching model to identify SAMR levels and reflections. And Northwood Kensett used a lesson plan guide for teachers. And so what you can see across those 3 examples is what Amy touched on at the end of her presentation, which was all the districts were working on the same problem of practice. They were all working on this idea that we want to see a better integration of technology in classroom instruction and more appropriately aligned to both the SAMR levels in the SAMR framework and instructional goals. But because there were different contexts in each of the districts, they all had their own spin on that intervention, and all were able to test things slightly differently and gather different results. And what we did at the end of that cycle as the hub was we brought them all together and they gave presentations on their PDSA cycle and the data and findings that they gathered. And it was it really spoke to that networked piece. The teams all shared successes and challenges and results, and I think everybody involved had something to say, like, oh, well, I will, in our next cycle, I'm going to do that, or can I get a copy of that protocol you use because I think that fits well for the data we're trying to collect. So we really saw some good examples of the power of networking this group together as a community, and how that works.